Welcome into the Hot Read Podcast for Wednesday, December the 6th. I'm your host, Easton Freeze, director of published content here at BroadwaySportsMedia.com. We're also brought to you by the 440 Podcast Network. You can follow me on social media at Easton Freeze. I'm joined as always by producer JT, who you can follow on social media at JT_Ruhnke. JT, how are you? What's new with you, my friend?
I'm good. Starting off December, we're eating good. We got the GTA 6 trailer yesterday. Unfortunately,
Heard about that.
it's the trailer,
Come
and
out
now
in 2037.
yeah, right.
When
Like
is
they
it come out?
released a trailer to do 2025, but no, I'm doing good. That came out. I was feeling high, and then Jake Browning puts on the performance of a lifetime last night and beats the
I
Jacksonville
was about to
Jaguars.
say, best backup
Um,
performance of all time.
which was a good sign last night. It was super fun. So
Good watch.
good vibe so far in heading into this week right now.
So question for you about your Bungles. Is Joe Burrow a system quarterback? Is that what's happening here? Or what's the
You're gonna have to,
that one?
I'm gonna have to send a couple of agents to silence you at your house.
Take
because
me out.
We're not gonna answer. No, he is not.
I have no thoughts of self-harm. If I disappear, JT did it, everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Welcome into the show, everybody. On a Tuesday afternoon as we're recording for our Wednesday show, as always. Appreciate you being in here with us live today. A couple of fun things to talk about today, including when I was super wrong earlier this week. I put a thought out there, and it was a very strong take, and then like 42 minutes later, it was proven very wrong by Mike Vrabel. So we'll talk about that. A decision that he made that I was very pleased to be wrong about, to say the least. Another decision that was made just about 42 minutes ago today. Another person employed by the Tennessee Titans, no longer employed by the Tennessee Titans, at least for now. We'll talk about that. And then we'll talk about a little check-in on Will Levis, some Billie Jean's discourse today, as we talk about his first 5 starts as an NFL quarterback and where we're at on him right now. Finish that off with a little bit of news with producer JT, as well as talking a little bit, finally just dipping our toes into the waters of the draft. We're just going to talk a little bit about the draft order and how that's shaking out with it was week 14 coming up. So we've got, including week 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, we got 5 weeks left. That's not much football left to enjoy of regular season, that is. So we'll talk about how things might shake out at the top of the draft where the Titans are likely to end up. Appreciate you all being in here with us today. Before we dive into things, a couple of housekeeping items. We are brought to you today, as always, by Boomba's Craft Pizza and Tap House, a fine pizza establishment here in the Middle Tennessee area. 3 locations in Murfreesboro, in East Nashville, and our home location in Spring Hill, Tennessee, just about 25 minutes down the road, down I-65. If you live in the Nashville area, it's a great hang, whichever location you go to. Delicious pizza, delicious beer and wine and cocktail options, all available for you at the bar. A fantastic selection across the board, as well as great viewing opportunities for any and all sports watching that you have to do. We love Boomba's, and we're there live each and every Thursday before Thursday Night Football, doing our live preview show of the upcoming Titans game that weekend. So we love hanging out, doing the show there, and then hanging out after the show, watching Thursday Night Football. This week, we're being subjected to something that really I haven't checked, but I'm guessing the Surgeon General of the United States does not recommend prolonged exposure to Patriots. What is it?
Steelers.
Bailey Zappi versus Maserati Mitch. It should be a good time. We'll be struggling through that, maybe making up some drinking games. If you want to come hang out with us, it's going to be a good time. So please do that. Also, if you're watching with us live today, a couple of things you can do to help us out. First, go to Broadway Sports Media's YouTube page. That's where you want to watch this live stream. If you're on Twitter or on Facebook, leave those live streams. Go to the live stream on Broadway Sports Media's YouTube page. You'll find this, and you'll find the comment section there where you can join Wyatt and Green Thumb, who are already a part of the conversation today. We'd love to hear your thoughts, questions, comments on our Titans topics of today, and that's where you can join us in that discussion. Also, while you're there, hit the subscribe button. It's free to you. It's very helpful to us. We want to get the subscriber count on that channel up. We're trying to get to 1,000 by the end of this NFL season. A loftier goal, but one that I think we can hit with a little bit of help from you guys. So please help us out by doing that. Hit subscribe, hit the bell notification button if you want to be notified of when we're going live, which is 3 times a week during the NFL season. All right, JT, before we dive into all things Titans today, I want to share just something that's going on in our lives. First of all, completely off topic, but I wanted to share just for the people, for the culture. When you have like movies that you're like, I've never watched that. I should watch that. Like but it came out 7 years ago. And like, I'm just, finally I'm going to sit down and do it. Like, I know it's a good movie. Everybody loves this movie, but I've never seen it. I don't know anything about it. That was me with Mad Max. I watched that for the first time this week. Very good movie. I enjoy. I'm assuming you've seen this film, correct?
I have, yes.
Very good movie. What inspired it really was the trailer for Furiosa, the new Mad Max series movie coming out, and I was like, I want to see that, but I feel like I'm going to need to have watched Mad Max first. So I did. It was very good. I recommend going and watching a movie that, again, I'm recommending a movie that's been out for 7, 8 years now. I have no idea. It's been a long time. So go check that out. Also, going on in your and my lives, JT, anyone that plays fantasy football is likely coming to the end of the regular season this week, week 14, typically when fantasy football leagues come to an end. And as we all know, nobody cares about your fantasy league, right? Like nobody cares. The guy that comes up to you at the bar and tries to tell you about his fantasy team, the whole time you're like, please stop talking to me. I'll pay you to stop talking to me. But this is not about our teams. This is about what I think might be a all-time record-setting, record-breaking, competitive group of teams in fantasy. I'm pulling up my fantasy app right now, JT, because you and I both are in a couple different fantasy leagues. We have a fantasy league here on the show, which is coming to a pretty tight end, but not as tight as our league of record, our friend group that we've been doing this league with from college for a long time. It is coming down to the single most competitive Electric Boogaloo Thunderdome final countdown last week of the year for practically the entire league. So here's what it looks like top to bottom for records, right? You've got the top 2 seeds with the buys already locked in at 10-3 and 10-3. You got one more team locked into the playoffs at 8-4-1, excuse me. The rest of the league, a 10-team league. So the next 7 teams, the records are 6-7, 6-7, 5-8, 5-8, 5-8, 5-8, 4-8-1. That's 7 teams fighting for 3 spots right there. It is anybody's ball game. You look at the playoff prediction percentage calculator, and almost all of us are sitting like right at 50, 55%. It really is you have to win or you go home pretty much for the end of the season here. And I don't think we could have scripted it more competitive than this.
No, and you know what? This Monday night game for the Titans could have not come at a better time, because we're all going to get together next Sunday and watch this, and probably some friendships will be ruined or made this Sunday, because both of us do not really have any Titans responsibilities until Monday this week. So we finally get a week where we can just enjoy some of probably the worst football like this. If you
we're going to talk about that, but this slate is oh boy.
Regardless, there are more important things, and that is us bashing our heads in this week in fantasy with some of our best buddies, and I'm so excited for it.
Yeah, I am too. We're gonna be banging hats. It's gonna be a good time. All right, that's enough. That's enough vamping about things that you, our precious audience, do not care about. Let's talk about some things you do care about, and let's talk about 2 guys that were employed by the Titans 72 hours ago, and both are no longer employed by the Titans. The first of which is the most recent, Monty Rice. 3rd-round linebacker, 3rd-year player, has been let go as of this afternoon. He's been waived by the Tennessee Titans. He expressed his thoughts on Twitter, signed off in pretty common athlete Twitter ways, in my opinion. He's released right before being released. He tweeted out "Thank God" with a salute emoji. So that makes 2 Titans defensive players in the last 2 to 3 weeks that have expressed rather passive aggressively their thoughts about this team and how happy they are to no longer be with the team. Now, one of those guys changed his tune, deleted his tweets, and joined the team back like 10 seconds later. But I don't know if that's going to be the case with Monty Rice, who has had a tough go of it here at the Tennessee Titans. Not a lot of playing time. A guy that coming into the year, a lot of folks are saying this is his chance to become a starter, to claim that spot, and that really did not happen. If you look at our buddy Tron Davenport brought this up, I think, on Twitter. If you look at his snap count the past couple of weeks, they were really trying to get him going in the past month or so. He had 17 snaps against Tampa Bay, 29 against the Jaguars, 22 against the Panthers, but then only 8 last week against the Colts. That can be perceived as kind of strange that they were trying to get him ramped up and then suddenly they waive him. To me, that kind of reads like they were trying, they are now in full find things out mode, fact finding mission for this team. Like that's where they're at. They need to take as best inventory of their stock as they possibly can, find out who they have and who they don't. And this screams to me like a team that has a third round asset who's in his third year, who, is about a year removed from coming up on needing a new contract, trying to figure out and be sure that, in this case, it sounds like they were trying to make sure they want to get rid of him. Like, they're like, we're probably not going to keep this guy around. Let's make sure we don't keep him around. Let's give him a fair shake. Let's give him a chance. And they gave him, 60, 70, 80 snaps over the past month, and they've decided to part ways. So that's kind of how that reads to me, JT, that they were just figuring out for sure that they were done with them. They decided, yep, for sure, we are done. And that is where they're at. If you look at him as a part of the Titans draft selections at the end of the John Robinson tenure, he is yet another example of just how, this is the picture that for me was painted by John Robinson that painted him all the way out of the front office. Like this, there's a number of different angles you can look at the John Robinson firing and say, oh, it's because of the AJ Brown trade. It's because of the power struggle between him and Vrabel, maybe, or maybe Miss Amy wanting something new for this team, wanting a new direction. Maybe it was the fact that he wasn't performing well in the draft, and boom, right there. I think you've nailed it on the head with that last one. It is not just his performance in the draft, but his performance high in the draft. And when you put it in this context, it's really eye-opening. And this is, I think, if you had to boil down a number one reason why John Robinson was let go last November, it's because of this right here. The Titans, they made 11 picks in the top 100 of the NFL draft between 2020 and 2022. One of those was Monty Rice, who is now joining a large group of those 11 players who are no longer with the Tennessee Titans, and for good reason. Only 3 of those 11 picks have turned into consistent contributors. They are all defensive backs, and they are not all guys that, despite the fact that they've been consistent contributors, they aren't guys that people love necessarily. You've got Christian Fulton, everybody's favorite cornerback one, who is destined for no longer being a Tennessee Titan after this year, I think it's fair to say. Elijah Molden, who has been a versatile, sometimes available, sometimes not defensive back, in my opinion, significantly better. Not even really an opinion, just the fact on tape, significantly better in the slot where he's more comfortable. They have been trying, partially, I think, out of curiosity, partially out of necessity this season, trying him out at the safety position, and it's been not great, in my opinion. I was just talking to our buddy James Foster about this yesterday. He's just not that fast. He gets beat over the top relatively often. He doesn't do a great job of containing and keeping guys in front of him. It's been underwhelming to me. I think that he's much better served playing in that slot position. He's a solid slot. Other than that, elsewhere on the field, I think he's more of a depth player. And then you've got Roger McCreary, who's really the only guy in that group where you can say, okay, this guy has proven himself through a year and 2/3, a little bit over a year and a half. He's proven himself to be a quality starter, a good pick, somebody you're glad is on this team, right? It's Christian Fulton, Elijah Molden, and Roger McCreary. Those are the only 3 out of those 11 picks in the top 100 that have become significant players to this team, some for good, some for bad. That's what happened here, right? Like that's the issue. And I see, this is my first time reading this, JT, because I think you included it on the rundown. This from Blake Tucker on Twitter. He said, I love that John Robinson traded back from 85 to 92. Oh gosh, missing out on Nico Collins so that he could draft Monty Rice. And then he traded up from 126 to 109 to take Des Fitzpatrick when he could have taken Amon-Ra St. Brown. It was decisions just like, that right there is a microcosm that tells the whole tale of why John Robinson ultimately rolled the dice and played himself right out of a job. Any thoughts on Monty Rice before we move on to the maybe more interesting firing for the Tennessee Titans?
I think it's
farewell.
That, and also I think it's pretty telling that, considering the injuries that are racking up on the defensive side of the ball now for the Titans, getting rid of a guy like Monty Rice is pretty telling to me that even
Lord knows they don't have excess talent at linebacker.
Exactly. They do not have the depth right now to be making this cut without them feeling very, very seriously about his future with the team going forward. And I think that speaks volumes, that when you have injuries like this and you have this kind of depth on your team, making a cut like this is a big deal. And so clearly Mike Vrabel and Rand Carthen are pretty much done with him. And I think it's pretty interesting to see that with Jaleel Johnson, it's interesting. I think it's also interesting to see now that this is the second time that a guy on the defensive side of the ball now has come out on Twitter and done something like this. It's pretty interesting to see how this plays out. But it's something to note that these guys, they feel very strongly about when they're cut. They feel like they have done serviceable enough to this team, that in the front office does not. So it's interesting to me.
Green Thumb in the comments here saying Monty said on Twitter to watch the tape, which missed tackles should Green Thumb watch first. That kind of sums it up right there. Yeah, I mean, that's the nature of the athlete, right? Any athlete, they're going to be delusionally confident in themselves. They have to be in order to succeed and get to that highest level. And so I don't begrudge them that at all. That's going to be the case with most guys, and some are wise enough not to put it on Twitter and some aren't. Let's talk about Craig Auckerman, who is no longer employed by the Tennessee Titans. We titled our Monday episode, part of the title was Craig Auckerman needs a new job. He now does, in fact, need a new job. Not figuratively, but literally, he is out of a job. Mike Vrabel announced on his Monday press conference that he had made the decision for Craig Auckerman to no longer be part of the team, said that it was for the best for the team, for the best for the players, and a change was needed. Thanked Craig Auckerman for all of the things that he did in his time here, and then bid him a fond farewell. But we can start with the fact that I got a lot of flack, and like people made fun of me for good reason. I tweeted like 40 minutes before the Titans made that announcement that I really did not think that Vrabel was going to do it. I really thought that it was going to be an offseason move. And I pointed out how Mike Vrabel had never in his history as a head coach fired one of his coaches midseason, even when they had, DUIs and spent nights in jail. Like, he had stuck with guys through to the spring and then made changes then. And that was the reason behind the educated guess that, and it's funny to make fun of, like, I'm all for making fun of me for that because it's objectively hilarious timing. So I don't begrudge anybody that poked fun of me for that. I poked fun of me for that. But in all seriousness, like, I don't think anybody really, I mean, we have to give credit to Jared Stillman, again, our favorite person in the world. He did, in fact, say on Sunday that he expected Craig Auckerman to be unemployed by the time he did his radio show on Monday afternoon. So good on Jared. Jared's been very vocal, maybe the most vocal in the media market about Craig Auckerman needing to go, although that's been a very popular and shared sentiment amongst most everybody in the market, because it's pretty obvious. Like, he's not any good at his job. We said on Monday, you could give him 1,000 special teams aces and it wasn't going to matter. He was going to do less with more. And so when you got a coach like that, who's consistently doing it year over year, it's time to make a change. And the breaking point, obviously, was, unfortunately, the breaking of the star punter on this Tennessee Titans football team. It's pretty clear to me that Mike Vrabel held Craig Auckerman responsible for that, as it sounds like he should, getting such a valuable punter hurt and done for the year and needing surgery, and then putting his athleticism in question, as a serious injury like that is going to do going forward. You never know if a guy's going to come back all the way from that, hoping for the best, and it sounds like things are going to be all right after the surgery, but you never know. That kind of thing, I think, was a bridge too far for Vrabel, was unacceptable, and he made the decision for the first time ever to fire Auckerman mid-season. I'm glad that I was wrong. I'm glad that they did it. I'm not glad that somebody is out of their job, but he gets paid a lot of money. He's going to be fine. He'll go find another job elsewhere. Like I said on Monday, I'm not in the calling for people to be unemployed business. I'm in the calling for people to have a different job business. And I think that he needed a different job, and now he's going to go find a different job that hopefully does not impact the Tennessee Titans. And that is good news. The Titans have appointed an interim special teams coordinator who, this is bad on my part, I did not write down his name and I've already forgotten. It's Tim Shaw, isn't it? That's who it is. It's Tim Shaw. Tim Shaw is filling in at special teams coordinator for the rest of the season. And then I'm assuming Mike Vrabel is probably going to go and make another hire in the offseason, but perhaps Tim gets to stick with that job. We'll have to see. Green Thumb asks, and this is where I want to take this conversation. So since this seems to be a talking point, Green Thumb says, who fired Auckerman, Vrabel or Amy? And I'll add on to this because I had some people asking me this or claiming this on social media, or Ran Carthon. Like, which of the trinity of Titans leadership made this decision? There's plenty of places in the Nashville media market if you want people that lean into conspiracies, that lean into wondering what if and trying to find the zebras amongst the hoofbeats when you should probably be looking for the horses. I'm somebody that's inclined to look for the horses, and that's, I think, what people value about my analysis, value about this show. That's what I'm here to tell you. Like, Mike Vrabel made this decision. Was there input from Amy or Rand? I'm sure they talked about it. That's the kind of decision you talk about with the other executives in the room. Maybe one or both of those people nudged him to make that decision now instead of later. But no, people are wondering if I had people ask me verbatim, did Rand Carthon fire Craig Auckerman? He doesn't have that authority. He doesn't have that. Like, he doesn't have the ability to do that. It's Mike Vrabel's coaching staff. Mike Vrabel is the one who made the decision to fire him. Was there input from the other people? Maybe, probably. I don't know. Who cares? The point is, unless Mike Vrabel wanted to do it, it wasn't going to happen. And he wanted to do it. And so he did it. Craig Auckerman's no longer in the position. That's good news for Tennessee Titans fans. I think they should be happy about that, right, JT?
Yeah, I think so. And to your point, like, when it comes to these decisions, I'm sure all of them knew about it, because just a shout out, because it was a fantastic article that you told me to go read today. Teron Davenport's article on the whole Vrabel versus Carthon situation. It seems like Amy Adams Strunk is being as Wyatt puts in here, collaborating. It seems that Miss Amy is in on or aware of everything, even down to some of the minute details of who is flying with the team this week, who is not. You should really go check out that article that our friend Teron Davenport did today. But I'm sure, yeah, both of them probably were aware. But like you said, it is his coaching staff. Rand Carthon does not appoint the coaching staff. That is the job of the head coach, Mike Vrabel. It is his staff. So yeah, like you were saying, he's the one who did it, and it's time, I think this was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, because we have not seen really this year a game or seen a game in the past couple of years where, at least in this losing streak, where Craig Auckerman was the direct reason, and his squad was the direct reason as to why this team lost a game like they did against the Colts on Sunday, and they lose arguably maybe their best player. Just if you look at it on paper and the stats, like, their best player right now, for better or for worse, was Ryan Stonehouse, and you get him sidelined for the rest of the season. This is the first time that in recent memory that Craig Auckerman was the direct reason as to why the Titans lost this game. He's been part of the reason why they've lost games, and Vrabel has been able to cover for him and said, well, they just got to go do their jobs. We made other mistakes, but it was the reason why he lost the game for them. And so I think that's a big reason why he fired.
Squarely. Yeah, absolutely. I really don't have anything else to say on that. I mean, good riddance feels harsh, but it had been years of this, so I'm glad the Titans are moving on. Let's move on here on the show and talk about Will Levis. Before we do that, just a reminder, Boom Boss Craft Pizza and Tap House, our wonderful and amazing sponsor here on the Hot Read Podcast. Check them out wherever you are nearest to one of their 3 locations in Middle Tennessee, East Nashville, Murfreesboro, or Spring Hill. Great stuff, great pizza, great drinks. We love Boom Boss. We also love when you subscribe to us on YouTube, so go on over to Broadway Sports Media's YouTube page, Broadway Sports Media, hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get that number up, and it's very helpful to us. It's free to use, so help us out. Hit the subscribe button. Appreciate that, guys. Okay, let's talk about Will Levis. And before I say anything about him, I want an honest check-in with live viewers. This is where you are live studio audience. I'd like for your participation. Help me out here. Don't leave me hanging. If you're on YouTube, I know I can see that there are at least a dozen of you on YouTube right now. So help us out in the comments right now. I would like you to give me on a scale of 1 to 10. Just send the number. Scale of 1 to 10, 10 being certain and 1 being I really don't think so. How confident you are in Will Levis after this year. And by that, I mean, how content are you going to be? Imagine we are now at the end of the year. We've seen what we've seen from Will Levis, and what you've seen so far is all you have to go based off of. How pleased are you? How content are you for this Titans team to spend their $100 million this offseason and their draft picks to build around him? Also assuming they are high enough in the draft order this year that if they wanted to trade up and go all broke for a quarterback, they technically could. How confident are you to go with Will Levis going forward? Again, scale of 1 to 10, 10 being extremely confident. I'm curious where folks are at right now, Will Levis. So just send your number and we'll talk about that as they start to pour in. JT, what would your number be on that based on what we've seen right now moving forward with Will Levis?
Yeah, it's a tough. I think it's also a fair question, as Roshan brings up, how confident and how content are two very different questions. I think um, for at least confident wise that he is the starter
Maybe
next
I should
year.
phrase it this way: how confident are you that they should be like how confident are you that moving forward with Will Levis would be the correct decision? Does that make sense? Like, how
Yeah,
confident are you that the team would be making the right choice to move forward with Will Levis?
I'd put it at 8.5 for me. I've really, I mean,
I was going to say 8 or 9. Yep.
you've seen basically kind of the better side of a rookie quarterback right now. You've seen the ups and downs, but you've seen the flashes every single game, and it's not like he is making wrong decisions every single game, and those wrong decisions are kind of piling up on each other. I think that um, every game he does make mistakes. Some of them he's gotten away with. Actually, a lot of them he's gotten away with. The amount of dropped interceptions and
Mm-hmm.
like another one this past weekend where he goes and picks up his own interception fumble, or whatever
Follow
you
that
want to call
rebound,
that.
baby. Follow that
Um,
shot.
but I think I've seen enough out of him as a rookie right now to say that this is a guy, and why it brings up an interesting point here where he says can't say more without a better O line or receiving core. I think with
Sure.
some better weapons, I think we'd see more, and I feel that's where I'm at right now and how comfortable I am with him moving forward.
I agree. So you say 8 or 9, I say 8 or 9. D Good saying 6.9, nice. Evan saying 7, Roshan 6 or 7, Wyatt 8, Deagle 8. Roshan clarifying, saying he's confident that they should give him a shot, 9. He thinks that's the right idea. So I think we're on the same page there. Yeah, that's I think where most people are, and I was just curious to see where the folks were in the comment section. I want to talk about this because we were watching on Sunday Night Football, not Monday night, but Sunday night. We saw Chiefs Packers, very good game, another win in our best bet gauntlet column. But beyond that, we saw two quarterbacks, the current GOAT active in the league and Patrick Mahomes, as well as an up and coming kind of enigma of a quarterback who's been sitting behind the scenes for, this is his third season in the NFL now, Jordan Love in Green Bay. I believe this is his third year, first year starting.
I think it's even longer. I think this was his fourth year because they signed him to a new contract this year, a 1-year prove it deal.
Okay,
Is what they.
You can fact check me on that. It's either 3 or 4. It's been at least 3. We can agree on that.
Yes.
I may be wrong on that, but the point is, it's been a while. He's now starting for the first time, and it's been an interesting. I don't know if folks have paid enough attention to him and the Packers this year, but it's been an interesting situation where things started kind of rusty. They have one of the young. I mean, every player on their offense is basically 25 years or younger. Extremely young, fresh players who have a lot of learning to do. So they make
And
a
you
lot
were
of
right.
young
Yeah, you were right.
Okay.
I don't know why I felt like
It
Jordan Love has
feels like
been
it's.
here.
I mean, it feels like
It
it's been
feels
an
like it's
eternity.
forever.
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, he was drafted as the 26th overall pick in that COVID year 2020 draft.
So he's a guy that I find interesting because if you were to judge him based off of his first 5 starts this season on a team that I think you cannot argue is any worse than the Titans. In fact, I'd say that they're talent wise on paper a good deal better than the Titans, have a good deal fewer holes than the Titans. If you judged him on his first 5 starts, you would probably say this guy's a low-level starter, high-end backup. He's not really going to give you that X factor. You don't see a lot of you see some sparks, some little flashes here and there, but the consistency is really bad. And the downsides, the things that are lacking in his game, they stand out more. And those things are overwhelming in your evaluation of him. Like, that's kind of where you'd be. But then if you judged him on his most recent 5 games where he's been really sneaky good. I mean, he's been fantastic in his past 5 or 6 NFL football games. It's a totally different story, right? And so I think that's interesting perspective for Titans fans with Will Levis, who is younger, has less experience on an NFL roster, like Jordan Love, first year starting, but he's been practicing behind the scenes with NFL talent for years now. Will Levis has not. And in his first 5 starts, it's been a lot of the same, right? It's been flashing sparks here or there. I would say that his first 5 games, all in all, actually a good deal better than what Jordan Love had in terms of the amount of flashes he showed, the amount of high-level traits that he has demonstrated. The growth already that we've seen from him is very similar to Jordan Love, in my opinion. How he started out really hot, struggled for a couple games against the Pittsburgh game on Thursday night and the Jacksonville and Tampa Bay game. Like those 3 games following his massive Atlanta Falcons debut, they were a real comeback down to earth situation. But then in the past 2 games, again, so actually I guess he's played 6 games. I said 5 earlier in the episode. It's been 6 games. In the last 2 against Carolina, and then this past week against the Colts, he's shown me real growth. He's shown me real development from a number of standpoints. The first thing that stands out to me is if you look at his first game and second game as compared to his last 2 games, his reliance on 50-50 balls to D-Hop, his reliance on the play action deep shot, trying to push the ball down the field, all or nothing, like that's gone down. He's been much more intentional on tape from what I've seen at getting the ball underneath, getting the ball to the correct read, getting it to the correct place on time, throwing outside the numbers, throwing across the middle, throwing to a variety of different receivers. Now he's throwing an outsized number of balls to D-Hop. I'm not trying to contradict what he said on the recap show this week, where I was laughing about how DeAndre Hopkins is basically their only receiver. He is, but he's finding a way to get the ball to guys that aren't receivers, right? He's getting the ball to Chig. He's getting the ball to Josh Wiley. He's getting the ball to Derrick Henry and Tyjae Spears. He's getting the ball to Chris Moore and NWI even. Like he's trying to distribute the ball as best he can. You force the ball to D-Hop because he's clearly the best. You should force the ball to him. But in general, he's done a good job of taking what's there, finding the right windows, throwing different arm angles. Like I could go on and on about the different things that he's done a better job, in my opinion, in the past 2 games of protecting the football, not throwing as many of those passes where they hit the defender in the hands and they easily could have been intercepted. All of those things are working in his favor. And I think that is exactly what you want to see from a guy that, as somebody in the comments a moment ago pointed out, the offensive line and weapons situation that he is surrounded by. It is borderline, it's borderline requires an NA, like an N/A, like TBD. We can't make an evaluation on this guy. Like we talk about with Bryce Young, where it's like it's difficult, man. It's difficult to make an evaluation on a guy. We need to can we just wait until he gets some actual players around him? Can we wait until he's in an actual fair situation to him? Vrabel's not got Levis in that situation exactly, but it's real close. And on certain games, it sure feels that way. And so I think that he's exactly where you want him to be. I think that the next 5 games that they play are very important to continuing his evaluation. But through 5 games, I've been very pleased. JT, do you agree or disagree? Do the people in the comments agree or disagree?
Yeah, I think let's look at the comments here. We have a couple of them that are chiming in as well. Let's see. Let's go with Charlie first. He says 5, dude. He's got to get better with reading defenses, and he's got to be more accurate. He says that he's seeing a lot more from like a Brock Purdy or a CJ Stroud. I push back on that one a little bit more, as I would say that for me, it's like not every quarterback is going to look like Brock Purdy and CJ Stroud did, right? It's a lot of like,
Charlie, are you aware of the roster that Brock Purdy plays on? Do you want to see what Will Levis can do on that roster? Because I would bet a irresponsible amount of money that you put Will Levis on that roster and he looks not only dramatically better than he's looked with Tennessee, but I'd argue give him as much time as Brock Purdy has and give him Kyle Shanahan to lead him along. He's doing just as well as Brock Purdy, and absolutely the ceiling is much higher. So I completely disagree with that.
And then Deagle also saying need to give him an honest shot. Seems like he has the right attitude, film study, and all that. And I would agree. Like that is some growth.
The
that
intangibles
we're seeing.
Are all there. Yep.
He is a guy that wants to get better every single week. He knows where his downfalls are and his pitfalls, and he's working to get those fixed. And I kind of agree with him here as well, that he has this attitude that you haven't seen before with last year's Malik Willis. He's a guy that wants to get better and wants to improve every single week in and week out. So I would say I think Will Levis is on the right track.
No, I completely agree. So I take it you share in that opinion, right? That's kind of where you're at as well. I'm just making sure we got through all the comments here. Don't want to leave anybody hanging here on the Hot Read podcast. So that's my 5 cents on him. 5 cents. That's my 2 cents. I guess I gave you 2.5 times the typically recommended cents. Regardless, we can move on here to the draft order, and unless anybody else has any thoughts on Levis, and we can circle back if folks want to throw those in the comments. Let's talk about the draft order before we get to the news and get out of here on a lighter Tuesday. The draft order as constituted currently, and I have a bit of an update on something that folks were kind of confused by earlier in the week. A very popular site, third-party site used to determine the current draft order is Tankathon. I use it all the time. A lot of folks are constantly pointing to that as their proof of where a team is. The NFL's own research department put out their current order this week, and it didn't align with what Tankathon had, and it had a lot of folks confused. Coming out of Sunday, Titans fans were under the impression that the Titans had pick number 8. Then the NFL research department came out and said that the Titans are currently at 7th. Folks were arguing with me like, well, Tankathon said, and my point was, I'm going to trust the NFL's own research department to just like the entity that decides the draft order. When they tell me what the draft order is, I'm going to default to believing them. Nobody's wrong here from what I understand. From what I dug up on this, Tankathon is calculating strength of schedule for tiebreakers for games that have already been played, as well as projecting games that are yet to be played. With this NFL research list where the Titans are one spot up in the 7th position, not at 8, this is just current strength of schedule. So Tankathon is projecting ahead. NFL is what currently technically is. So that's the difference. 8 really doesn't matter. 7, 8, they're in the 7-8 ballpark. Okay. Can we just agree on that? But regardless, the teams that the Titans are with and in front of are the Bears, obviously, with Carolina's first overall pick at 1-11, getting that Carolina pick. So it's really Carolina's 1-11 record. The Pats at 2-10, the Cardinals at 3-10, the Commanders at 4-9, the Bears at 4-8, the Giants at 4-8, the Titans at 4-8, and the Jets at 4-8. So they're tied with the Bears, Giants, and Jets at 4-8. The Commanders also at 4 wins, and then the Cardinals at 3, Pats at 2, Bears at 1. I want to talk about the rest of this Titans season and kind of just our best guess as to where they may finish up. I am still not convinced that they're going to lose out. If they do lose out, I think there's a not unreasonable chance at all that finishing, if they lose out, they'd be 4-13. That's not unreasonable to think at 4-13 you can get certainly a top 5 pick, maybe as high as 3. I'd be shocked if they got as high as 1 or 2, because that would require the Patriots to win 2 or 3 more games, the Panthers to win 3 or 4 more games. That seems, and for the Titans as well to not win any more games. That seems unlikely. But, besides the Bears and the Patriots and the Cardinals, those are the only 3 teams that have less wins than the Titans. Everybody else has 4 more in the entire league. And when you look at the situation this Titans team is, as well as the upcoming schedule for them, the first thing to me that kind of changed the math for me coming out of Sunday was the injuries, right? You lose, it sounds like Jeffrey Simmons is going to be out for a couple weeks. That's no good, right? Derrick Henry, we don't know his status this week. At first, it seemed like they may be missing him on Monday night against Miami. May not have mattered going against a much better team like Miami. But it now seems like maybe they're going to have him back. I don't know, but he's a little bit banged up, right? You got a handful of guys. This is not reporting. This is me. I feel this. I'm guessing this. I have a feeling based on what I've seen that there are some guys up front. And again, everybody at the NFL level is hurt at this time of year. But I have a feeling based on what I've seen that some guys on the defensive front are pretty banged up. I think Tier Tart is playing through a decent injury or injuries. There are a handful of guys. Danico Autry, who looks a little bit rattled at times when I see him walk around the locker room. Like, that's me guessing. I could be wrong. The point is, this team's kind of banged up physically. You wonder morale-wise how long it will be until they're banged up. Confidence-wise, if they play like they played against Indy last week, the rest of the year, they're gonna win a game somewhere because they played way too feisty. They played way too. It's weird to say well because they lost, but they played well enough to be very competitive in a competitive ball game and well enough to win depending on different circumstances. So, we pointed out on Monday's show about how they had more yards. They had a better third down conversion rate. They had a better red zone conversion rate. They like all of these metrics. They were the better team. So that's going to equate to some wins if you do that enough times. All that said, you look at their reigning schedule, 5 more games at Miami this Monday night. I don't think anybody expects them to win that game. That we'll talk about that more on our Thursday show. Then they play Houston at home, Seattle at home, at Houston, and then at home against Jacksonville. So 3 games against divisional teams, twice with Houston, once against Jacksonville, and then their non-division remaining opponents are at Miami and then at home against Seattle, both teams with winning records. Or actually, Seattle might be 500, but 500 or better. All of these remaining teams are. Not crazy to think that these guys, this Titans team wins. I don't know. I'd be floored if they won more than 2 of these games. I would guess, I'd put the over/under at 1.5. I'd say they win 1. Maybe they get lucky and win 2.
I
I'd
think
be
I'm with you
surprised
there.
if they lost 0. I'd be surprised if they won 0. I'd be surprised if they lost. Or pause. Let's start over. I'd be surprised if they won 0. I'd be surprised if they won 3. I think 1 or 2 wins left is a reasonable expectation for this team, especially when, as we talked about on the show last week, playing spoiler is so fun at the end of the year. And they've got 3 games against 2 teams that are in a hotly contested AFC South playoff race, Houston and Jacksonville. They would love to ruin both of those teams' chances and do as best they can to frustrate them and keep them out of the playoffs or make them a wild card instead of a division winner. They're going to try their best to do that, and I have a feeling they're going to get one of those teams. But if they do that, kind of looking at the rest of the teams on this draft order list for the Titans and the games left on their schedule to try to figure out, okay, the Titans tied at 4 wins with a lot of these teams outside of the very worst 3. If they're trying to get to 4th, they're battling these 4-win teams to be the worst 4-win team. What's got to happen? There's going to have to be some teams that win some games when the Titans lose. So we've established the Titans have some losable games. Looking at the rest of those teams and what winnable games they have left on their schedule, Arizona, they play Chicago. One of those teams has to lose, right? They're both down there. Somebody has to lose that game, or somebody has to win that game rather. Washington plays the Jets. That's a winnable game. The Jets play New England. That's a winnable game. The Giants play New Orleans. That's proving to be a pretty winnable game right now. And then Chicago plays the Falcons, who are eminently beatable at the moment. So those are all situations where teams that are at or lower than the Titans in the win column, Arizona, Washington, the Jets, the Giants, and the Bears, can all find a way to win and bump the Titans as a result up the draft order. And that's very good news. Okay, I'm done rambling, JT. What are your thoughts on this Titans team, how they're going to finish and where they're at in the draft order?
Yeah, I think I'm with you on the win total. I wouldn't be shocked, to be honest, if they didn't win another game. I think that's a
I
little
wouldn't be
different.
shocked. I'd be a little surprised, but I'd be way less shocked by that than if they won 3 of their last 5.
Yes, that's fair. I think the 2 that you can directly look at that would be the most winnable. First of all, the Seattle game, kind of a reeling Seattle team right now who is not playing their best ball.
Very gettable defense. Yep.
Yeah, playing them at home on Christmas Eve could be a win there. And then also the week before that, playing a Houston team at home. Seems Houston will be going to the Jets this week will be playing that tough Jets defense and then having to come into Nissan Stadium. The Titans will be wearing the throwbacks once again, if you believe that the throwback voodoo that there is.
Great. It's a good point. I forgot about this. Yep.
So those could be 2, but outside Miami, it would be a miracle for them to win that game. Playing at Houston and then Jacksonville, you never know. I mean, could they win 3 games? And we'll talk about Trevor Lawrence in a little bit. Could Trevor Lawrence be out for some extended time here to end the season? Maybe. So Jacksonville, that could be a win. So I think 1.5 is a nice spot right there for them. I don't, like you said, I'd be shocked if they win 3 or more games to finish out the season. And then for their draft pick, yeah, I think they're firmly planted in the top 10, which is super exciting considering the high end prospects that are coming out this season. But yeah, there's a lot of teams having to play each other that are really bad going forward for the rest of the season. And a lot of these teams are already tied for 4 wins with the Titans. So could move up in close to the top 5 and could be looking at one of those top 5 tackles, or maybe Marvin Harrison falls or something like that. Yeah.
And everything you said there is valid. To play the optimist for a minute, the reason why I think 2 wins is not out of the question is because outside of that Miami game this week, which I don't think any of us are expecting them to win, we just want to see, show us what you got kind of thing. And if they win, it will be the most Mike Vrabel win of all time, and it will be just like classic, of course. But I don't think anybody's going to see it coming. The last 4 games of the year, like they play Houston twice. It's just in general, no matter how bad you are, it happens, but it is provably difficult to beat a division opponent twice in the same year. And then Jacksonville, they've already beat the Titans once. Again, they play them again at Titans place this time. That's also a situation where it's difficult to beat a team twice in the same year. It's also a situation where you look at that Jacksonville team who their quarterback's now banged up. Sounds like it's good news for them in general, which is good. But that's also a Jacksonville team that with Trevor Lawrence for the vast majority of that game last night lost in a shootout to Jake Browning and the Bengals, a team that the Titans also at home murdered earlier this year with their starting quarterback, a hobbled version of their starting quarterback. But is a hobbled Burrow dramatically worse than a healthy Jake Browning? Like that's the kind of comparison you can do and say this Jacksonville team at their best, they are very good and they are much better than the Titans, but they clearly are gettable. And so I think that the Titans are going to play them tight like they always do. And so those four final games, I think you can make an argument for any of those 4 games, the Titans finding a way to win 1 or 2 of those. All right, that's all I have today for some Titans topics. Let's get to the news with producer JT, and let's get out of here. JT, what do we got in the news today?
Yeah, let's talk about 2 of the Titans' defensive players here, starting with Harold Landry, who has quietly in the past 6 weeks kind of returned to a little bit of the Harold Landry form that we all know and love. Since the Titans returned from their Week 7 bye, Harold Landry has produced multiple pressures each week and is tied for 22nd among edge rushers in total pressures at 20. That's the same total as Myles Garrett over the last 6 weeks. So Harold Landry is slowly but surely coming back to that player that we all thought he could get back to.
Yeah, I mean, JT, I'm old enough to remember you and I on this show telling folks early in the season, folks who were very confident after 2 or 3 games in their take that Harold Landry was a mistake to pay, a waste of cap space, a bum. They were ready to give up on him. And we had to tell people, yeah, he's coming back from an ACL, guys. Like, you got to remember, that's a significant injury. Different guys have different return times, and there may be no position on the field more difficult to return from an ACL to than an edge rusher position where you have to have a lot of bend, a lot of torsion, a lot of torque on that knee and on that ligament. That kind of thing is going to take some time. He's also just rusty. He's not played football in a full calendar year. Let's give him a couple games. And here we are. He had a couple games that were really rough the first month or 2 of the season, and now he's starting to really round into form, back to what we expect from Harold Landry. I really don't think he's even at 100% yet. I think he's just going to continue to finish stronger and stronger and probably come back next year being compensated very highly and look more like the guy that's deserving of that bag. So once again, the lesson, as is very common from us in this space, man, sports fans could really use they could stand to have a little bit more patience just in general. Patience is difficult, but it is a virtue. And in sports, it's so easy to want, give, like, what have you done for me lately? It's now or never. I don't consider blinders. I don't consider the rest of your career. What have you done for me now? A little bit more patience, I think, would go a long way with a lot of folks. So this is another example of why you should be a little patient with guys, especially coming back from, I don't know, major injuries.
Yeah, now let's talk about Jeffrey Simmons, who he will be missing some time, but some good news for him is he was nominated as the Titans' Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee for the Titans. Obviously, does a lot of good on the field and off the field, so very deserving of him. And we'll have to see if he's in the running later this year.
Yeah, he does. I've got some of my best friends went to Mississippi State, and so they are entrenched in that culture and in that community down there. Or were, and the amount of work that Simmons does, not just for the Nashville community, he does a lot of work for the Nashville community. He's a very giving guy. He's just a good guy. There's a reason we love talking to him in the locker room. The media pool are really fond of him. I'm going to guess he probably wins our Media Man of the Year award, which was the essentially Kevin Byard award until he's no longer here. Jeff has been fantastic to us, and he's fantastic to everybody. He's just a good guy. He's a gentle giant, really. And the amount of work he does in this community, but really back home, you could argue a much more needy community in some of those poor communities down there in Mississippi, in and around Starkville. He does a lot of work, a lot of, youth camps, a lot of food drives, toy drives, clothes drives, charitable work. I'm constantly seeing it from folks in and around that community, the things that he's doing, some very publicly, some very not publicly. He's a giving guy, and he's absolutely deserving of this award. So well done.
Yeah, and let's move over to some AFC South broader news. And we're going to go with the Jaguars, who have caught a couple of tough breaks now with their loss last night to the Jake Browning-led Bengals. They also lost Trevor Lawrence, who Coach Doug Peterson said today that Lawrence has just, in quotation marks, just a high ankle sprain, with all other tests coming back clean. Peterson won't put a timetable on Lawrence's recovery, but didn't rule him out for this week, and it is not season ending. Tough news right now for the Jags, but as they still are one game up on the Texans for the lead in the AFC South, it's good to hear that he is not season ending for them.
Yeah, it's very good news. Man, it's a tough year to be a quarterback. It is a brutal year to be a quarterback. And as you were alluding to earlier in the show, some of the quarterback matchups we have to face this week, we already talked about, we're getting Mitch Trubisky versus Bailey Zappi coming up on Thursday Night Football, which should be just a delight. I'm trying to find it here. Some other quarterback matchups that we're going to have to face. Oh man, I can't find it. I'll have to find it when you're talking in a minute. There's a couple of brutal quarterback matchups that we have on this Sunday's slate that really should be illegal. But where is this list?
I have it right here. So
you
we have Bailey
okay.
Zappi versus Mitch Trubisky on Thursday night. Gross. Most likely, unless Trevor Lawrence does come back, CJ Beathard next week versus the reincarnated elite quarterback Joe Flacco for the Browns. Gross.
Delicious.
Gardner Minshew next week for the Colts, playing Jake Browning for the Bengals. Gross.
Great.
Baker Mayfield versus Desmond Ritter, which those are the starting quarterbacks.
They're not even backups,
still,
but they should be.
They should be the favorite. And then Josh Dobbs, maybe does he keep that starting job this week versus Aiden O'Connell? That's going to be an interesting one. And then Bryce Young versus Jameis Winston, most likely, as Derek Carr deals with that concussion. Not the most fun matchups this week.
How about a little Jordan Love versus Tommy DeVito? We like Love, but Tommy DeVito, baby.
Oh, I love Tommy DeVito. Tommy DeVito
as a person, yes. As a player, he makes my eyes bleed. Sorry, Tommy.
Okay, that's fair.
But yeah, that's the situation there. So tough year to be a quarterback in the NFL. I hope it's not indicative of anything besides just a fluky bad year, honestly, because it's been heartbreaking to see good quarterbacks go down and then having to watch terrible football on Sundays.
And that is not the only injury for the Jacksonville Jaguars, who they continue to keep this lead in the AFC South, but maybe it's not for long. Here's the full list of the Jaguar injuries for
was this just last night?
This is what they'll be dealing with going forward here.
But these were injuries that happened in the last night's game. Okay.
Yes. Trevor Lawrence, he's dealing with that high ankle sprain, and he will be monitored this week. Christian Kirk went down with a groin injury and was ruled out early in that game. He will miss some time with a core muscle injury that may need surgery.
Sounds like he's going to be done for the year.
Yeah, he might be done for the year, or at least the rest of the regular season. Tyson Campbell is day-to-day with a right quad strain. Walker Little has a left hamstring strain, and he will be monitored. Trey Herndon is in concussion protocol, and Andre Cisco will be fine after he hurt his shoulder. So,
did you intentionally skip over Foley Fatukasi?
Yes, because I didn't know how to say his name. But
I'm looking at it here on the rundown. I'm like, he doesn't know how to say it, does he?
No,
Foley
I don't.
Fatukasi,
but he's dealing with a left heel contusion day to day. So this team is banged up, and it's going to be a tight race down the back.
I was never letting you get away with that. D Good wants the most important update. How about that sideline attendant in the Saints game who tore his knee or broke his leg or whatever? We have an update on that, but we'll get down to the bottom of it. Don't you worry. All right. Is that it for the news today?
That's going to finish our news for today.
All right. Thank you. That is producer JT with the news. And that is our show. Just a real nice, gentle, easy one for you today. Not a lot of deep, hard hitting topics. Not a lot to talk about midweek this week for the Titans, but we'll have plenty to talk about as we preview what should be a fantastic Monday Night Football game between the Titans and the Dolphins next week. I forgot that it's a doubleheader. It's so funny that every time the Titans play on Monday night, the NFL is always like, well, you don't have to watch the Titans if you don't want to. Here's another game just in case. It's happened a couple of times. So that's the situation the Titans are in. It's two lopsided matchups. I believe it's Giants Packers is the other matchup on Monday night alongside Titans Dolphins. Both are it's like you like to switch. Can we put the two good teams in those two against each other? Then the two bad. Can we have an A league, B league situation would be better, I think, for that. But we'll be talking all about the Titans, what they could possibly do to keep things competitive against the Dolphins on Thursday, live from Boomba's in Spring Hill, 5:30 Central Standard Time. Come hang out with us. Come get a drink on Boomba's on us. It's going to be a good time. Make sure you're subscribed to Probably Sports Media's YouTube page. It's free. It's very helpful to us. Try and get that number up. Please, please, please go and subscribe to YouTube. On my knees begging. It would be a personal favor. Appreciate you guys doing that. And then make sure you are following the Hot Read Podcast on TikTok, on Twitter, and on Instagram. That's at Hot Read Pod on all platforms. Great content going up practically every single day there, and it's a great place to find updates on the show. All right, until Thursday, for producer JT, I'm your host, Easton Freeze. This has been the Hot Read Podcast. We'll talk to you then.